back underway. I'm pleased to report, ladies and gentlemen, we're about halfway into this race now, and it is Matt Daly who leads. 2 seconds between him and Jack Hodson, so Jack Hodson losing out in that battle in the end. Alan Thomas has some severe front wing damages, carrying on though in P7. We've already got a serious field spread. Alex Smith has unfortunately retired from the race. Not quite sure what the cause of that was, but I can tell you it was only about 3 laps in, so I imagine some type of either failure with his setup or just a massive off that sees him tumbling back. One of those two there, but yeah, huge field spread. 2 laps between P1 and P8. It's been a while since we've seen a field spread like that. As Alan Thomas has another collision there. I think he's just scraped a barrier. It's so easy to do here at Jeddah. We saw it with Max Verstappen in 2021 in qualifying when he set the lap to beat all laps, really. As a bit of a back-end step out there, well caught by Alan Thomas. Some rear wing damage to boot as well, so I can't imagine the handling of that car is going to be very enjoyable at all. But yes, this is a very unforgiving circuit. The walls close in on you as you increase in speed. One small error can have you an inch too far to the left or an inch too far to the right, and that is enough to plant you into a wall that is pretty much race ending. I suspect drivers being cautious of that this evening so far. Fastest lap at the moment is Matt Daly with a 1:33.7. Apologies, no, it's Jack Hodson with 1:33.6. Jack Hodson looking very dialed in into that car, and I should mention these two at this point in time are going to be set up for quite an interesting battle. We've got just over 10 minutes to go in this race, so we're getting towards the later stages now. 1.5 seconds separate these drivers, make that 1.2, but it's Matt Daly on the C2 tyre and Jack Hodson on the C3 tyre, so that difference in tyre strategy could play in effect later on into this race. We did have a bit of a midfield battle potentially forming up at the start of the race. That has dwindled, I have to say. The closest cars out on track are Matt Daly and Jack Hodson. That gap actually expands to about 1.7 seconds now. Matt Daly running that C2 compound of tyre. It's actually a slightly harder tyre, which is looking like it could be the sensible choice. Well, we're about a 50-50 split. More people opting for the softer C3 than the C2, and we're seeing here now Jack Hodson closing that gap up substantially. A bit of a messy couple of corners for Matt Daly, and Jack Hodson is right now attached to the wing of Matt Daly's car here. He was, at least. He's had a bit of an off. He's had a bit of a collision with a wall by the looks of things and has dropped straight back again. Matt Daly using that DRS, Jack Hodson using that DRS. I should explain to those of you who are new. I know I haven't been able to stream too much of the Formula Alpha series so far this season, but the DRS can be deployed at any point within the DRS zones, regardless of how close you are to a car in front. That means the leader can use the DRS. That means that the car behind can use the DRS. It just allows for a little bit more top speed towards the end of the straights there, allows for even lower lap times. But yes, that C3 tyre should be slightly softer. That does give Jack Hodson outright more grip, however it also can cost him in terms of tyre life towards the end of the race. We're starting to get to those later stages in the race now, where Matt Daly on that C2, that harder tyre, should come into his own. He should be able to fly on a little bit. It's only C3 runners from P2 down to P5, so there's going to be no threat of tyre strategy battles in the midfield in this race, as we have a retirement from Alan Thomas as well. The car just too damaged, not drivable anymore. That leaves 7 competitors left on track now. Will Inglis having a very unfortunate race by the looks of things. 3 laps down, he's just gone into the pits and has tumbled back to P7. This has been a race to forget for pretty much everyone involved, really. Matt Daly, of course, not having a great getaway. I'm sure enjoyed a battle with Jack Hodson to get ahead and up into first position. So he'll be quite pleased with this one, but I'm sure those below him at least are getting ready to forget the 27 corners of the Jeddah Corniche circuit, and we're not even anywhere near race 2 just yet. It'll be interesting to see how this rather unfortunate race for some makes in the championship standing. Let's have a look at those championship standings then. At the moment, we are after the end of this race, we will have surpassed the halfway point in the championship, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen. And there is a championship that has been dominated so far by Alan, not by Alan Thomas, although Alan Thomas does have a decent number of points to his name, currently fighting for 11th in the championship. It is Alex Smith with 177 points to his name, who utterly dominates this championship up to this weekend. Of course, a DNF is not going to help things, especially with his nearest rival, 70 points down, of course, being in P1. That is going to close that gap right up, and a gap which I've just written about actually for the next issue, the upcoming issue of Alfa Romeo Driver, a gap which I said was pretty much insurmountable and forgettable at this point. Forget about the championship. Has just been completely, once again, I've been proven entirely wrong, and we could be on for a championship fight later on into this year. Let's see what happens in race 2. That could really be make or break for Matt Daly's championship chances. This is going to be an important round after all in determining some people's fate in the Drivers' Championship. Jack Hodson has had a really strong showing this season, has broken from the midfield and is starting to really fight now for those podiums. He's doing a good job of it, of course, currently running in P2, 89 points to his name, level pegging with Andrew Brammer not here, of course, this evening. In fact, correct me, completely is here this evening. Apologies, Andrew. Currently running in P3. Again, I'm going to get the Finley Swarbricks and the Guy Swarbricks mixed up. I'm also getting the Paul Brady's and the Andrew Brammers mixed up as well, it seems. But yes, Andrew Brammer and Jack Hodson level in terms of points, but it's going to be Jack Hodson who leads heading into the second race. Then we have Finley Swarbrick, of course, newcomer to the championship this evening, was very keen to get involved, which is what we like to see, asking plenty of questions, which, of course, we welcome in terms of, is it a sprint race? Do we stop for pits? Do we have setup changes that we need to consider? The answer to which is yes to all of those. Actually, you can do a pit stop if you prefer. It's not really ideal. Doesn't tend to work out, but you can give the pit stop strategies a go if you wish. Of course, open setup championship. You are free to adjust your car to your liking as you see fit, and if you do have more questions, please do jump into the AROC Racing League's Facebook groups or message any people that you might be able to get hold of from it. We'll all be happy to help and get you involved in any way that we can. Let's have a look then. Who else is doing well in the championship? Well, Will Inglis currently running in P6. It's not going to be an amazing weekend for him, but we'll still take away some points. Alan Thomas, as we mentioned, P11 in the championship, in that fight, right in the midst of that fight, actually, with the likes of Steve Knight, Rob Whitley, Paul Brady, Gareth Swarbrick, Alan Matthews as well, all in that kind of lower midfield fight there. In fact, you could probably throw in Barry Clayton and Paul Millman, P7 down to P kind of 11, P12 really, all fighting for championship positions at the moment. Of course, only at the halfway stage of the series. It is still all to play for out there, especially given a slow start for Alex Smith this evening. As we mentioned before, though, very high-speed circuit is the Jeddah Corniche track. Top speeds we're seeing around about 320 kilometers an hour, which is pretty much as fast as you tend to see a Formula 1 car going these days. So yeah, so 200 miles an hour. That is all you need, really, isn't it? You can't ask for much more. These Formula Alphas are incredibly capable machines, and once you kind of get a grasp of them, they can really impress you with their pace. Sometimes catch you out as well. I've found it is a tiring car to drive. These sprint races are by no means easy. It's tiring because you've got to have your wits about you for so long. One small error can cost you big time. Stephen Knight has one small error in that lovely purple liveried car there. Is able to get back on track though. Paul Millman were on board at that moment in P5 on his own lap, pretty much in that famous Paul livery logo that we are, Paul Millman logo that we are so familiar. I'll try that again. That Paul Millman livery that we are so familiar with at this point. Here's another one that we're familiar with, and usually we're familiar with it here in P1. Usually fighting against the likes of Colin Knief as well. Unfortunately, Colin not getting along with this car, not gelling with it, and perhaps for the first time that I can think of, we see Colin Knief actually at the bottom of the championship standings in this series. So make sure you have a look at that one, ladies and gentlemen, because it's probably going to be the only time you're ever going to see that. Yeah, a very capable driver, of course, and making big moves in our touring car running with the Giulia GTM, which of course will be next week, will be the next round of that series. Stay tuned on the 27th of March there, and then we'll be crossing into April already, would you believe it? Please report as well the next round of the former Alpha Series I will be able to attend as well. last bit of real life commentary obligations for the next couple of months does not fall on a Wednesday, which I am pleased to report. I'm very sorry I've missed the past few rounds of the Formula Alpha Championship. It is not something that I want to do. I usually tend to quite enjoy the Formula running, and I've been very sad to miss it, particularly as I do like. I know it's not the driver's best friend, shall we say, is the Formula 1 car here, but I do love playing with all those hybrid systems and engine modes and thinking about tyre strategy and just trying to push yourself as much as possible in terms of playing with the car. I only do that because I'm useless out on track, so I might as well have an excuse of setting up the car. You know? Nice to see a bit of a oversteer stepping in for Andrew Brammer there. A slightly softer tyre, of course. We have these runners on the C3 compound here. Willinglish back into the pits again. Willinglish treating this like a testing session at this point. You want to be careful that he completes 75% race distance, of course. Matt Daly, though, on that C2 side, a harder compound of tyre. We don't have too much in terms of pace comparison to look at. It seems to be the tyre to go for, I would say, at this circuit. Finley Swarbrick having a bit of an issue there, although it's still a good showing, all things considered, running in P4 on his debut to the series. So a good showing, good number of points to start off a championship charge with as well. Let's see where he can get to in the standings with just 6 more rounds after this one to compete in. In terms of pace, so let's have a look. Paul Millman is on the C2 tyre, just like Matt Daly. He's in the 37s, 37.9 on the last lap, his best being a 35.9. Matt Daly, the next driver and only real standing driver left who is setting representative times. Willinglish, of course, pitting so many times in this race. Matt Daly, last lap at 34.4, best lap at 33. Those on the C3 tyre, that softer tyre, 37-second lap times, 37s or 38s. So that softer tyre is completely dropping off in the later stages of this race. So for the reverse grid race coming up in just a few minutes, it will be interesting to see what the strategy is looking like. We've got 20 seconds left on the timer now, and we are just heading through the middle part of the lap here with Matt Daly. That will mean that this is the penultimate lap of this race that we're on board with at the moment, as he's in the next DRS zone. One of the scarier DRS zones, I imagine, to negotiate in Formula 1 machinery, because it's really not a straight line, that DRS zone. You have pretty much no rear downforce apart from what the floor is providing. Of course, it's providing quite a lot in a ground effect car. You have no kind of fixed downforce coming from that rear wing. It is completely eliminated, or for the most part eliminated, when using that DRS system. See a bit of oversteer there, not a bit of oversteer, a bit of wheel spin coming from the back axle of Matt Daly's car as he heads back onto the start-finish straight and down into the first corner, starting the final lap. Then he has had to work for it. It's not been he didn't make it entirely easy for himself, of course. Poor getaway on the first lap, having to scrap with the likes of Willinglish and Jack Hodson in the first couple of laps. He gets back on course though and is now in the lead of this race. Watch out for the green lights flashing about the car, as well as the red light on the rear diffuser as well. This is indicating what is going on in terms of the hybrid system on the car. The green light will indicate that the full ERS deployment is in use, so that'll be overtake mode if you are familiar with the Formula 1 franchise of games. And then that red LED cluster on the back of the car indicating that the car is harvesting energy there. That is an indicator for his rivals that the car might be slowing down quicker than others, but also that he's having to manage his car. So it'll be one to watch out for in the second race, as we'll have some more action coming up there. A 10-second lead though. It has been a strong late race phase for Matt Daly here as he heads down through the mid-sector once more. Only a couple more corners to negotiate. They are listed as corners at least, but they're not really corners. There's only one big corner that you have to think about really in a Formula 1 car left, and that is turn 27, the final corner out on track for Matt Daly, and a track that has rewarded him. It has been a strong first race for the man in yellow here as he heads round onto that start-finish straight for one last time. One last big burst of energy, more tyre smoke as well as he puts that power down. The DRS opens in celebration for Matt Daly, who heads across the start-finish line there and takes the checkered flag. Congratulations, Matt Daly, for a fairly dominant race victory there. We have a little bit of a wait before we see Jack Hodson heading down the start-finish straight himself at a great pace here, weaving a little bit across the line. He takes home P2, and I'm sure is happy with that one. Great points all for him and helps him in his championship fight against this man here, heading down towards turn 27 himself. Paul Milman will actually be the first to cross the line out of these two and come home and cross the and go past the checkered flag, as he will come home P5. But it's Andrew Brammer who seems to be... No, I thought for a second he might be a little bit slower there, but no, it was just my eyes deceiving me. Rounding out the podium in just a moment, it is Andrew Brammer coming home in P3. Then we have Finley Swarbrick. Hats off to you, sir. A great drive so far this evening. And already on the skirt of the points, though, sorry, of the podium there. That is an impressive feat, and one that I'm sure will give a bit of a boost to the old confidence. As we have Paul Milman coming home P5, Steve Knight coming home P6, and I do not believe Willingless will be classified. Willingless will not be classified in this race, so no points for him. That will not help in his championship fight. But the last driver on the lead lap of this race to be coming home is the aforementioned Finley Swarbrick. It has been a brilliant drive for him in the end. A good haul of points, as we say, and should be thinking about challenging for those podiums. Who would have thought that so early on in his Swarbrick.com Formula Alpha career? He crosses the line, then comes home P4, and that brings an end to the running here in race 1. We'll catch you in just a few moments for race 2, the reverse grid race here at the Jeddah Corniche circuit, so don't go anywhere. And welcome back to the action, ladies and gentlemen. Just over 10 seconds now until it lights out, and the grid is Jack Hodson, Matt Daly, Finley Swarbrick, Andrew Brammer, Paul Millman, Steve Knight, Will Inglis, Alan Thomas, and Alex Smith, who we do have an update on what went on at the start of the race there. But it's 6 red lights in the gantry, and we are away for race 2 here at Jeddah. Good start for Paul Millman there. He runs into that first corner in the lead of this race. Having a look around the outside, it is Finley Swarbrick. Nothing he could do from there just yet, though. That is Steve Knight already in the pits. Not sure what has happened there, but it's a pit lane start for Steve Knight. Meanwhile, it's Matt Daly trying to side his way up through the field. Needs to fight, of course, to try and take at least another podium or another race victory to try and put a stop to Alex Smith in his championship charge. Collision between Finley Swarbrick and Andrew Brammer by the looks of things, and our rookie hopeful has had an unfortunate start to race 2 here this evening. Drops down to P9. Alan Thomas having issues, a big contact with the wall, actually not gelling with this circuit is Alan Thomas, modified registrar of Corse. Has a lovely little Mito and a Volvo as well, but retires from this race. 120 kilometers per hour collision with the wall there. Paul Millman currently leading this race still. That midfield contender is in a great position at the moment. Everyone still on a mix of C2 and C3 tyres, but more drivers than ever opting for that harder C2. So learning their lesson from Matt Daly there potentially, and are going to have a bit more pace later on into the race. But it's Andrew Brammer now under pressure from Matt Daly, who is really trying to work his way up through the field and doing a good job of it. It must be said, he's got clear of Jack Hodson, just like he did in race 1. He's going to go up the inside into the final corner. Prime overtaking opportunity here at Jeddah, and is up into P2 now, putting that pressure on Paul Millman as we head under DRS down towards turn 1 once again now. Having a look around the inside into the first corner here. It's still a bit too far back. Going to get boxed off by Paul Millman. It was potentially a bit of a brave move there from Matt Daly. He wasn't quite alongside just yet, and dropped back a few positions actually as a result. It looked like the door was left open for it, so that was potentially Paul successfully baiting Matt into trying to go for a corner that just wasn't his yet. And unfortunately, Matt drops back to P5. Paul then still leading this race, but still very much under pressure from Andrew Brammer now. He's fighting for this victory, riding over that curb. Now, that curb is one to watch out for, and we will see a little bit of footage from that curb in just a few moments. But there is Andrew Brammer still having a look down the inside, see if there's anywhere he can go. He can't try and get that car to fit in just yet. Good to see Alan Thomas rejoining the session, so potentially going to treat it as a bit of a practice session, which is always handy. The top 4 covered by just 1 second here in this race, and it's Andrew Brammer still putting the pressure on. It's going to be side by side now with Paul Millman. Alex Smith has a big collision. He's trying to replicate what he did in race 1 by the looks of things. Paul Millman, oh dear, that is a substantial accident. I've never seen a crash that big in all of my AROC Racing League's commentating career. That is a serious accident, and we've got more cars. This is always the safety risk that we've had with the Jeddah Corniche circuit, is these corners are just blind, and you're going incredibly high speeds. We've now had the entire field pretty much making contact with each other. That, I believe, was initiated by Paul Millman and Andrew Brammer. We are 5 minutes into this race, and everyone is diving into the pits. We have not seen anything like this. That is Jack Hodson out. That is Steve Knight continuing on. Alex Smith continuing on. He had his own issues earlier on, of course. That car is putting so much front axle in to just try and make it round the corner. I think he's got substantial damage as well. But he is at least in P4, where he wasn't a moment ago. It's now Paul Millman who leads this race quite comfortably, but with serious damage. Will Inglis is now up into P2. Steve Knight in P3. No, I can't remember the last time Steve Knight was fighting for a podium. It's quite seen those opportunities are few and far between, but this is one of those opportunities for him now. Matt Daly retires from the session. That was a serious collision. We'll try and get a replay on that if we can, but yeah, let's have a bit of a reset. We now have 4 cars in the pits. Now, Alan Thomas, who DNF'd from this session not too long ago, has, I believe, has left the game and rejoined, so I believe he might not be in contention for any points now. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But he's now all of a sudden only a lap down. We've got Andrew Brammer leaving the pits as well. This is a bit of a nothing race really after that now, isn't it? I've never seen so large of a proportion of the field have to basically effectively retire, dive into the pit, and continue on. That was unfortunate for the likes of Jack Cotton and Finley Swarbrick, who were demonstrating some strong pace here. Paul Millman, it won't feel like a nothing race to him. He continues on down that start-finish straight. He's going to potentially be under pressure from Will Inglis in a little while. Will Inglis has a bit more pace, about 0.8 of a second faster. So in the next few laps, I'd say next 2 or 3 laps, we could be seeing a fight between Will Inglis and Paul Millman. Staying out about 10 seconds off the lead of this race. I don't think Alex Smith will be able to make up that gap given the condition of his car at the moment. Predicted a 140. He's lost about 4 seconds worth of pace in that car. That car must be awful to drive, although not as awful as it was in race 1. So let's have a look at some of these competitors out on track. Let's also have a look at how the championship is shaping up after the first race. So after that first race, Matt Daly closes that gap to Alex Smith. Alex Smith does take some points, but only 2. Sorry, it looks like 7 points actually. 179 points, still leading the championship, but Matt Daly now with 127. Then it's Jack Cotton with 107. Andrew Brammer slightly behind with 104. Will Inglis 82 points in P5. Then it's Paul Millman, not too far behind at all. And as it stands, will be overtaking Will in the championship standings. I didn't really have that one on my bingo cards going into the series, I must admit. But it's Paul Millman in P6, 78 points to his name. Then it's Andy Craker with 77. Barry Clayton, P8, 69, Steve Knight, 69 as well. So this will be an incredibly important race, actually, for Steve Knight's championship hopes. Then we have Rob Whitney, P10 with 58 points. Alan Thomas, P11 with 50. Paul Brady, 32. Guy Swarbrick, 28. Alan Matthews, 15. Closely behind Finley Swarbrick with 15. And Colin Knief in last with that lonely point there. Paul Millman having a bit of an off there. That brings Will Inglis back into play. He looks like he might have had his own slowdowns, but now within 1 second is Will Inglis. Usually in regular Formula 1 regulations, that would be now within the DRS window. Of course, Will Inglis already has DRS, but so does Paul Millman in that fight against Will. Both on the same compound of tyre. Alan Thomas has actually dropped onto the C5 tyre. He's just going for some quali runs here, and I don't blame him. This has been a bit of turmoil, has this race. It certainly is not feeling like turmoil for Paul Millman. Sorry, what it's feeling like is pressure. Bit of tyre smoke there as Will Inglis goes for a brave move through the inside there. That's a type of move that caused that incident that we had earlier on. It worked though for Will Inglis, and Will Inglis, opportunistic as ever, takes the lead of this race then by nearly a second as well. Some great pace as it turns out in Will Inglis' car there. What a turnaround in fortunes for Will after all is said and done. Race 1, complete disaster. Race 2, looking quite positive, at least for Will. I can't say the entire thing has been positive, as we still have that 10-second gap to the lead. It is now Jack Cotton trying to unlap himself against Steve Knight here. He's going to have some unlapping to do. He is 3 laps down. Finley Swarbrick drops another lap as Jack Cotton is continuing on, of course. So now would be a good opportunity to show you what So yeah, bit of a disaster for Alex Smith in that one. We'll give you a bit of comms on that in a moment if we can. All very much on the fly, so I do apologise for that. But yes, not an ideal way for your race to go. That was only on lap 4. That was just after the game had crashed, and I'm starting to wonder that was around about the point the game crashed. If I'm not mistaken, it might have been lap 2 that we crashed. But I wouldn't be surprised if all of the goings on there actually happened. As a result of all of the collision effects that had to be in use. So we'll have another quick look at that. So we can see him now. He's riding the curbs heading through the mid part of the lap, and there's a big curb coming up in just a moment. The back end's already stepped out. He rides over the second kind of more elevated curb, spins out, and then gets collected by the car behind. This was while he was in P3, and I believe that was Andrew Brammer, I want to say, was the initial contact. Nothing that could be avoided on Andrew Brammer's part, of course. And then more collisions occur, and then we get the full-on roller coaster effect here. Then it's all just absolutely chaotic. And the car, at this point, no one's colliding with him. There's 4 cars who have stopped here, but the physics engine is just spinning around of its own volition. There you can see there's no tyres left on the vehicle, so it's rims to tarmac, and we are getting those flame effects as a result. But yeah, a big issue there for Alex Smith. No wonder he retired, and no wonder we had so many cars out of position when we were able to rejoin the action. Speaking of rejoining the action, here we are back though with what is going on in the current race. Not too much to report after that massive off earlier on, and it's still Willingless leading this race, a few seconds clear of Paul Millman. Steve Knight is keeping pace with Paul Millman as we saw before. Alex Smith running in P4 still with. It looks like he's either repaired the car or he's managed to get through his issues, whatever he was facing, because predicted the 135 at this point in time. So running along quite nicely, it must be said. So with just under a minute to go on the timer now, you've been watching a bit of a silent radio show of what has effectively become an extended Jeddah practice session. Nothing, of course, happened in this race because something very big happened in this race early on, and that was the biggest field take outage I've seen really of in AROC Racing League's history, or at least not in AROC Racing League, for at least for quite some time. Paul Millman is losing a little bit of pace, so it seems, in this late stage of the race. He is on that 60 side, just like everyone else who has survived and everyone else who is on the lead lap of this race. Or no, actually, Alex Smith is just about on the lead lap of this race by the looks of things. Maybe not. In fact, he should just be about to be on the lead lap of this race if he keeps his pace strong. But yes, it's been a quiet one, shall we say, to finish what has been a chaotic weekend's worth of racing. Alex Smith on that slightly softer C3 tyre is flying along, I should say. His purple Sector 1 is clearly the fastest car else on track, 33.3. His best lap, 34.2. His current pace when everyone else is in the 37s, 38 and 39s. It was a 39 last time around for Will Inglis and a 38 for Paul Millman. Steve Knight seems to have really gelled with the car in this race. Maybe just having that little bit of less pressure on, well, maybe a little bit more pressure actually, fighting for that podium. He hasn't done too much of a fight really, but obviously still can lose it. Alex Smith just setting another purple sector there, but Steve Knight 37.7 on that last lap and matching Paul Millman in terms of pace at the moment. This will be a Steve Knight podium which will hugely benefit his championship standings. We're watching Will Inglis, who is now getting ready to start the final lap of this race. Alex Smith sets an absolutely blistering 1:32, by the way. New fastest lap of this race, and the only 32 we've seen in the race phase of this weekend. Yes, Paul Millman potentially looking like if this race was a couple laps longer, he could have been under threat, but it was not to be in the end. Puff of smoke there from Paul Millman's car. As we see, Will Inglis currently is occupying the same part of the track as Jack Hodson. This is the dangerous part of the track as well. We're all the way wrong for Alex Smith in race 1. The next dangerous part of the track is the late teens, those kind of turn 16, 17, 18, 19. That is where it can get a little bit hairy as well. Can be a little bit unforgiving at parts, can this circuit. Jack Hodson has that reference, of course, to follow to try and improve his lap time, which is something that perhaps Steve Knight will be benefiting from as well, being spurred on by knowing that Paul Millman is getting closer. Looks like it's too little too late, unfortunately, but still a great showing for Steve in this race, and it will hugely benefit his championship position there. He's currently in P9 with 69 points. Barry Clayton, of course, not here this evening, and with a podium under his belt, he will jump up to P7, will Steve Knight. So it's been a great weekend for Steve in the end. Will Inglis, though, gets back onto the start-finish straight. Of course, had a little fight for the lead of this race against Paul Millman. Great move. It was an opportunistic move, and he crosses the line to take race 2 victory. Congratulations, Will, for an impressive drive here. Hits the brakes and comes into the infield at the first corner. Paul Millman will be coming across the line next. A great result for him as well. A P2 will be another great haul of points, and we'll see him currently in P6, of course. We'll see him jump up and potentially be P5 as well. No, he will remain in P6, but it will be very close in that upper midfield battle now. Steve Knight crosses that line to round out the podium, and some well-deserved victory donuts there. Steve with an impressive drive and another podium to add to the collection there, that ever-expanding collection there. We have some victory donuts to seal off what has been an interesting weekend, shall we say. Andrew Ramadan coming home P5. Alex Smith not yet classified, will be coming home P4 though, as we have Jack Hodson last of the finishers in this race. We have Philly Swarbrick, Alan Thomas and Matt Daly retiring from this race. And we have a little bit more chaos to see out the weekend. Well, we would like to, but Jeddah is unfortunately making it a little bit difficult to see those cars enjoying the donuts. So we have the last car crossing the line here. Alex Smith with the longest race time of anyone will be coming home to finish off in P4. So still some decent points on the board at least. Not an ideal weekend for him though, of course, but the points haul that Matt Daly enjoyed in race 1, that has been slightly counteracted by the retirement here in race 2. So it's certainly going to be an interesting one for the championship, will, this weekend, even if all of the action wasn't happening out on track. Well, it was happening out on track, it was just happening in one big cluster, usually involving flying cars. So that is it from an interesting Jeddah weekend, shall we say. We'll catch you in a fortnight's time for the next Formula Alpha round, and in a week's time for the next touring car round. So I hope you've enjoyed watching as much as I've enjoyed commentating the racing that did actually happen this weekend. I'll catch you in a week. That's a goodbye from me.